I want to tell you a story, something that happened to me, I think just over 30 years ago, actually. And I've got a slide that I'm just going to put up. This is the great Ayrton Senna. And this is the McLaren Formula One team. And around 30 years ago, I got a work placement to work with McLaren and Shell, the motor company, to work in their motorsport department. And it was great. It was a summer that I loved, and I went to Silverstone. I met Senna, who is now no longer with us. And it was incredible. But I was only 19, and one of the things they did is they gave me some kit to wear. They said, here's your McLaren Shell polo top. And I thought, this looks so cool. But what I noticed was other people on the team were wearing a very slightly different t-shirt to the one I had, a slightly different polo top. And so I sneaked into the kit room, and I got one of the ones they were wearing, and I swapped it with my one, and I folded mine up nicely and put it back. And I came out, and my boss at the time, he looked at me, he said, "That's not the polo top I gave you." And I said, "Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is." He said, "No, it's not." And I said, "Yes, it is. It is. It is." And he said, All right. And what I realized on the rest of the Silverstone weekend is the reason they had a different top was because they'd been part of the racing team the previous year, and they were wearing the kit from the previous year that was subtly different to the version I'd been given. Anyway, the placement ended with a big presentation. You had to give a presentation. At the end of the presentation, you'd find out if you'd be offered a job with Shell International after graduating from university. And I wasn't offered the job. And I always look back and I think to myself, was it the presentation? Or was it the cover-up? Was it the cover-up? That there was just something in that wasn't good. And I learnt a lesson that day. It's this: when you cover up, you trip up. When you fess up, and if you're not an English speaker, what that means is to confess. It's slang for confess. When you fess up, you're set free. And I covered up, and I tripped up. And so the message today is this: fess up or trip up. And I want to start by talking about the cover-up. Because actually, I'm not the only one who covers up. You do as well. In fact, the whole of humanity has been covering up since the beginning of time. If you go back to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, they get given one thing that they're not meant to do: to eat from the tree. And what do? They eat from the tree. And God says, "What's happened?" And the first thing they do is cover up. Adam says it was Eve's fault. Eve says it's the serpent's fault. But actually, if you think about it, they literally cover up. They cover up. They realize they're naked, and they use fig leaves to cover up. And right at the beginning of time, humans have been covering up. We've been covering up. I mean, just think about recent times. Partygate. It's not just the original indiscretion, it's the cover-up. The famous Watergate. I understand that what happened was bad, but what made it worse was the cover-up. The cover-up is actually what often kills us even more than the original sin. And we come now to King David. And King David is at home. He's on his veranda, and his men are out at war. fighting the Ammonites. And he's got time on his hands. Interesting that. We always think having time on our hands is a really good thing, don't we? But he has time on his hands, and he's looking out across the vista. He is the king, and he sees this beautiful woman naked, having a bath. It does make me laugh that her name is Bathsheba. Have you ever sort of thought about that? Her name is Bathsheba, and she's having a bath. And he likes what he sees. He likes what he sees. And so he says, come and see me, which is code for, come and sleep with me. The problem is she's married. And the other problem is he sleeps with her and he gets her pregnant. Now that's bad, isn't it? Another man's wife, he's the king, there's a power dynamic, that's bad. But just to make it worse, and this is where the cover-up comes in, he tries to cover it up by saying, let's get your husband back from war. He's on the front lines. Let's get your husband. And her husband is called Uriah, the Hittite. And he gets Uriah back and he says, Uriah, come back from war. Chill out, Uriah. Why don't you just hang out with your wife? And, sleep with her, hang out with her, have a bit of, R&R from battle. And he's hoping that Uriah will sleep with her so that when the baby arrives, he can kind of say, oh, well, that was obviously when you came back from war. Are you with me? And the problem is Uriah is a very upright man. He says, there's no way I'm going to sleep with my wife. I'm kind of in war zone. You've called me back from war. There's no way I'm going to do that. And so David says, I tell you what, have something to drink. He gets him drunk. He hopes that Uriah will sleep with his wife. And Uriah still doesn't sleep with his own wife. And so David thinks, this is really bad. I've got his wife pregnant. What do I do now? Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll send Uriah back to the front lines and make sure he is put right on the front line so that he gets killed. And then that will sort it out. And Uriah gets sent back to the front line of battle and he is killed. So David effectively murders him. He covers up the fact he's got his wife pregnant by murder. And that is the problem with covering up. You go deeper and deeper. You form a web of lies. But there's another problem with the cover-up. The other problem with the cover-up is I'm literally going to cover up now. Watch me. I'm covering up my eyes. Because what the cover-up does is it actually makes us blind. It actually makes us blind to our own spiritual health. It's not just the thing we do, it's what it does to our soul. And that brings us on to the story for today, which is King David. He's done all this, but he's just carrying on. The baby has been born, by the way. Bathsheba's baby has been born. And this man called Nathan comes to see King David, and Nathan is a prophet. And King Nathan doesn't come with an accusation, he comes with a story. And he says, King David, I want to tell you a story. And King David says, yes, tell me the story. He says, there was once a poor man, and this poor man just had a little sheep, a little ewe. That's all he had, and he loved it like his own daughter. He cared for that little sheep. And then there was a rich man, a really rich man who had a whole flock of sheep, a whole herd of cattle. This rich man had everything. And this rich man had someone come to stay for dinner. And the rich man didn't kill one of his own flock of thousands. The rich man took the poor man's one sheep and killed it so that he could feed his guest for dinner. And King David is outraged. He says, that man, the man who did that deserves to die. He deserves to die. Now that's the thing about covering up, at least the spiritual blindness. It's what I call mirror blindness. We can't see what's going on in the mirror when we look at ourselves, but we're brilliant at seeing 20/20 vision about what everyone else is doing wrong. We're fantastic at seeing what's going wrong in everyone else's life, but we can't see what's happening in us. Where are you blind today? Sometimes when we're blind, the problem is we don't even know what we don't know. Something a bit Donald Rumsfeld about that, isn't there? We can't even see what we can't see. We can't even see our own blindness. A friend of mine went for interview and he thought he'd gone very, very well. And at the end of the interview, he went into the bathroom and just smiled at himself, thinking he'd gone well. And what he realised was that the BLT, the bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwich he had before the interview, the green lettuce had wrapped itself around his teeth. And so he had green teeth throughout the whole interview and never knew it, and had been smiling at the interviewers. We're blind to our own spiritual state. And on the internet, aren't we outraged? Aren't we outraged with the world right now? All of us. We're outraged, aren't we? We're permanently outraged. Because there's something about being outraged that makes us feel righteous, but keeps us blind to our own unrighteousness. I've got a theory now in my own life where the more outraged I am with the world, maybe that is a hint to me personally, there's something not right in me. And this is what David says. He said that man deserves to die. But God in his mercy sends Nathans to you, to me, and to King David. He sends a Nathan. And Nathan hears King David say that man deserves to die. And then there's the mic drop moment where Nathan says, "You are that man." It's a real painful moment where you suddenly realize the person I've just been condemning, the person I've just said that man deserves to die, is me. I stole that guy's wife. I'm a king with millions of wives and all the rest of it, and I stole that man's wife, and not only that, I murdered her husband. That man is you, says Nathan. And I want to tell you that God will confront you in your sin. Not because he hates you, but because he loves you. Not to condemn you, but out of compassion, because God is more interested in your character than your comfort. And we often think, oh, God's grace, it's really nice. It's nice. It's like a nice little whisper. A whisper. This isn't a whisper, this is a sledgehammer. That man is you. And sometimes it comes like a sledgehammer. Sometimes there's a moment of truth, and you need it. Because you've been blind looking in the mirror and suddenly you're like, wow. It can come as a whisper. Don't get me wrong, it can. Sometimes it's a beautiful little whisper where you're like, I'm reading my Bible and you really need to say sorry for that and the fact I covered that up. But often it comes through someone else saying something, especially someone you don't like. And the problem is there's a grain of truth in what they're saying. A conversation you have which leaves you feeling uncomfortable. A sermon where the preacher is preaching slightly too close to the bone. This is God's love and mercy, not his condemnation. It stings, but it saves. It stings, but it saves. Who or what is your Nathan today? Who is pressing on that button, or what is pressing on that button? Maybe right now you're sitting there going, I'm feeling uncomfortable. There's something going on in my life I'm not comfortable with, and I'm covering it up. And you know, Christians are the worst, because we know that we have to confess our sins at the beginning, don't we? Oh, I confess my sin, I become a Christian. But remember, King David was a man after God's heart. I mean, King David was, he was like a super godly man. Yet he was the one who sinned and covered up. And we can delude ourselves. Yet God in his mercy sends a Nathan to King Saul, and he's sending one to us today. What God exposes is not to shame us, but to set us free. And so we get now to the point that I want to call, I'm just going to run through a few slides here. We've talked about the cover-up, we've talked about blindness, we've talked about confrontation. We get to the moment of fessing up. Fessing up. And here for David is a moment, it's like a sliding doors moment. You either redouble down on the lie and cover up the cover-up, or you fess up. That is the moment of choice. And you think that fessing up is going to be annihilation. But I want to tell you, friends, it's liberation. That's what it is. It's liberation. But the problem is Elton John, isn't it? Problem is Elton John. I don't mean him personally. His song, Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word. Anyone like that song? Or is it just me who knows that? Yeah. Sorry seems to be the hardest word. Yeah. The problem is, saying sorry, it's a really big thing, isn't it? And I've been reflecting on this a little bit. I want to talk to you about something I've noticed, which is #SorryNotSorry. Have you? I don't know whether you've come across these. I want to just see if you can recognise yourself in any of these. My wife and I had a moment of fessing up to one another our favourite sorry not sorry moments. And here's one. Okay, mistakes were made. Have you heard about this? Mistakes were made. Or the corporate cousin of mistakes were made. It's regrettable that. Have you come across that? It's regrettable that. That doesn't mean we're sorry we did it. It means we're sorry we got caught. What does mistakes were made? The translation is by someone somewhere, who knows who, but it definitely wasn't me. All about this one. I'm sorry if you were offended. Anyone done this one? I'm sorry if you were offended. What that means is, wow, you're so sensitive. This is your fault for being so sensitive. What about this one? I'm sorry, but. Translation, there were all sorts of contributing factors that make it actually all right. I'm sorry, however, what about when you did that? Anyone do whataboutisms? Where you get accused of something and you go, yeah, but what about when you did that? And that's basically, actually, you know what? It's your fault. It's your fault. And David doesn't do any of that. Let's just go through what David does. He doesn't say mistakes were made. He doesn't say, I'm sorry if Bathsheba was offended. He doesn't say, I'm sorry, but you have to understand the pressure I was under. He doesn't say, what about when the other kings did that? All the other kings do that. He says these 6 words. I have sinned against the Lord. And the translation of that is, this one's on me. I have sinned against the Lord. And there's 2 aspects to that I'd like to share. The first is it's personal. I have sinned. I have sinned. If you want a personal grace, you need a personal confession. And the second aspect is vertical. To the Lord. I've sinned before the Lord. Yes, of course I've sinned to Bathsheba. Of course I've sinned to Uriah. But the primary person where this started, where I broke my relationship, was with the Lord. I broke the relationship with the Lord. And in those 6 words, freedom starts to flow in. Freedom starts to flow in. Nathan goes on, he says, There will be consequences, but you won't die. So simple, isn't it? I've sinned before the Lord. And this is where the good news of the Christian gospel comes in. Because the moment we do that, the moment we say that, things shift and change. And our lives shift and change. And it's an ongoing thing we need to do, that I need to do. In the 12-step movement of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a step 4, which is to make a fearless moral inventory of our wrongs. And there's a step 5, which is to make amends and to tell people about that and to say sorry. And so often, that is the moment of transformation with people struggling with addiction. When they have made a list of their wrongs and said sorry, something lifts. You literally see joy and peace and freedom come upon them. There's something that happens. It's like a gift. It's like a window that's been shut and painted over, and then you open it, and the air comes in. And David puts it like this. He says, "When I kept silent," Psalm 32, "my bones wasted away. But then I confessed my sin to you, and you forgave the guilt of my sin." He's saying holding on to the sin is like your bones wasting away. But I confess my sin to you, and you forgave the guilt of my sin. And so today, if you're not feeling joy and freedom, this might be a little sign. Yeah, actually, you know what? There is something I need to bring before God. No, I'm not an axe murderer. I haven't killed Uriah the Hittite. But you know what? You are prompting me on something, Lord, that I'm just sort of, yeah. And I need that freedom because I'm not feeling it. I feel that as Christians often, as we walk through life, we pick up dust on our shoes. It's like we pick up mud. I remember when I used to play rugby, you get mud between the studs of your boots. And what you'd have to do is pick them up and whack them together. And suddenly all the mud comes off. And that's like a sort of confession. It's like, get rid of it all. In the name of Jesus, get rid of it. And the good news, of course, is that there was someone who didn't cover up for us. In fact, he uncovered. A greater king than King David, King Jesus, who actually uncovered himself naked on a cross. And he took all our sin, all our shame, all our cover-ups upon himself so that we could be liberated and set free. And so today he comes to you and he comes to me, not with condemnation, but with compassion. Saying, come to me. Don't cover up. Because if you cover up, you will trip up. Today, fess up. And you will be set free. Gloriously, wonderfully, eternally. Amen.